Great! Here's section 1, 500 words, of the infidelity-style betrayal story, written in a faceless storytelling format. No specific names, no facial details, emotionally engaging and direct, ideal for narration in a video. Section 1. The Perfect Life and the Forbidden Love. Word count: 500. I was born into a world of power, money, and expectations. My entire life had been designed with one purpose: to take over the family empire. Everything I wore, every school I attended, even the people I was allowed to speak to, was carefully chosen by my parents. It wasn't a life, it was a performance. And I played my role perfectly, until I met someone who reminded me what it meant to live for myself. They weren't rich. They didn't come from status or legacy. They worked in the logistics department of our company, quiet, efficient, and invisible to most. But not to me. I noticed the way they treated people with respect, the way they never cut corners, and how they smiled without needing an audience. I couldn't help but be drawn to them. It started with small talks, shared coffees, and then secrets exchanged under flickering hallway lights after everyone else had gone home. It didn't take long before those moments turned into something deeper. I was falling in love, and it felt terrifying and exhilarating. For the first time in my life, someone saw me, not the image of who I was supposed to be. They didn't care about the wealth, the name, or the inheritance. They loved my silence, my fears, my dreams I never dared say aloud. We kept everything quiet. There was no other way. My parents had made it very clear over the years. Associating with people beneath our class was not just frowned upon, it was punished. So we lived in shadows, hiding something beautiful like it was shameful. I told myself it wouldn't last. That eventually, when I became the head of the company, no one could tell me who I could or couldn't love. But nothing stays hidden forever. One afternoon, during a family meeting, my father announced there would be a major reveal at the upcoming board conference. A change in structure. Everyone assumed it meant I'd be officially declared as heir, my birthright finally recognized. I should have been excited. I should have been preparing a speech. But I couldn't stop thinking about what it would mean if my secret came out. Would they still trust me? Would I lose everything? I started to feel a pressure building, like a storm was coming, and I was pretending the sky was still clear. I told them, my partner, that we might need to end it, or at least take a break until things settled. But they just smiled, gently took my hand, and said, "You don't need to choose today. Just don't lie to yourself." I didn't know it at the time, but that would be the last peaceful moment we had. Let me know when you're ready for section 2, or if you'd like voiceover formatting like pacing pauses, tone suggestions, or background music mood cues for narration. Here is section 2, 500 words, of the story, continuing the emotional journey while staying aligned with infidelity story principles: betrayal, confrontation, emotional coercion, and rising conflict. It's still crafted for faceless storytelling and narration-style delivery. Section 2, Discovery, Ultimatum, and Emotional Manipulation. Word count: 500. The message came unexpectedly, just one sentence on my phone. "We need to talk. Come home. Now." No context, no warmth, just command. When I walked into the room, I already knew. My mother was standing by the window, arms crossed, eyes avoiding mine. My father didn't bother with small talk. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts of messages, emails, a photo or two screenshots of my private life. No words came out of me. I wasn't even sure if I was breathing. "Do you have any idea what this could do to our name?" My father snapped. "You've disgraced everything we've built," my mother added, voice cold, as if I were a stranger. I tried to explain that it wasn't about rebellion, that I had fallen in love, not recklessly, but completely, that they made me feel safe in a world that never allowed me to be vulnerable. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd hear me, but their response was swift, brutal. "You end it now," my father said, "or you walk away from everything. There is no in-between." I thought they were bluffing, that this was just anger talking. But then the real manipulation began. My mother, the one who used to sing lullabies when I couldn't sleep, leaned in and whispered, "You think this person loves you? They're using you." You're blind. And if you can't see that, then you're not fit to lead anything, not even your own life. They painted my relationship as a weakness, a disease that needed to be cut out before it infected their empire. You're soft, emotional, unfit to lead, they said. You've let someone seduce you into forgetting who you are. I left the room numb. Everything I had ever worked for, everything I was promised, was now hanging by a thread. I met them that night, my partner. I told them everything. The threats, the shame, the choice I was being forced to make. They didn't flinch. No anger, no bitterness, just quiet resolve. If it's between love and legacy, they said, I'll walk away. I never wanted to take anything from you, but I couldn't let them be the one to leave. I had to make the choice myself. And for the first time, I realized if my love was making me lose everything, maybe everything was never mine to begin with. The next morning, I sent a message to my parents. Just 2 words. I'm done. No reply. No calls. Just silence. And in that silence, the real war began, not just with them, but within myself. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3. Or if you want me to prepare voiceover-friendly versions with narration cues or suggestions for background tone and music. Here is Section 3, 500 words of your story. This part deals with the emotional fallout after betrayal, a common turning point in infidelity stories, where the betrayed person faces isolation, social damage, and the deeper truth behind the betrayal. It maintains the faceless storytelling style and is paced for narration. Section 3. The aftermath. Isolation, rumors, and painful truths. Word count. 500. I thought the worst was over when I walked away. That the silence from my parents would eventually fade into something softer. Maybe even respect. But I was wrong. It didn't take long before the consequences started to pile up. My name was quietly removed from the company website. My work email deactivated. A legal notice arrived a week later. Drafted in cold, perfect language. I was no longer entitled to any future stake in the business. All benefits, housing, credit cards, company shares revoked. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, holding that letter, realizing my entire life had been stripped from me and the time it takes to fall in love. Friends stopped answering my calls. People I'd known since childhood, who once smiled at me during boardroom lunches or family galas, began to pretend I didn't exist. I'd walk into a room and feel the air shift, the way people whispered, the way they looked through me instead of at me. Rumors spread like wildfire. That I had lost my mind. That I'd been seduced by someone only after the family fortune. That I had betrayed everything my parents built for a fleeting, reckless romance. It was as if they needed to rewrite my story into something shameful to justify what they'd done. But the truth was far more bitter. One night, I received a message from someone I hadn't heard from in months, a former assistant who'd always been discreet. They wanted to meet. What they told me changed everything. My parents had planned this long before my relationship came to light. They were looking for a reason, a scapegoat, to push me out and replace me with someone more compliant. My cousin. The one who always played by the rules. The one who never challenged anything. Worse still, it wasn't just my parents who betrayed me. The person who exposed the relationship? Someone I trusted like family. A best friend who had smiled at my happiness, only to turn around and hand it over to the people who would destroy it. There was no misunderstanding. No miscommunication. This wasn't disappointment. It was strategic betrayal. Cold, calculated, and final. Through it all, the one person who stayed by my side was the one everyone warned me about. The one they called a mistake. They held my hand when I couldn't sleep, picked up extra shifts when I lost my job, believed in me when I didn't even know who I was anymore. We moved into a small apartment with creaking pipes and peeling paint, but it was ours. No wealth, no inheritance, just honesty, shared pain, and the start of something real. For the first time in my life, I had nothing. And yet, I had never felt more free. Let me know when you're ready for Section 4, Final, where the story resolves with healing, growth, and poetic justice, closing the arc with power and closure. Here is Section 4, 500 words, the final act of your infidelity-style betrayal story, focusing on healing, growth, and poetic justice. It closes the emotional arc while preserving the faceless, narration-friendly style, perfect for voiceover storytelling. Section 4, Rise, Healing and Sweet Revenge. Word count, 500. Time passed. Quietly at first. No dramatic comebacks. No headlines. Just slow mornings, shared meals, late nights filled with doubt, and days spent building something from nothing. We started a business together, small, scrappy, and painfully humble. It wasn't glamorous. We sold handmade items, handled customer support ourselves, and packed every order in our living room. But it was real. Every hour we worked came from choice, not obligation. Every step forward was earned, not inherited. In those early years, there were moments I questioned everything. I'd see old photos of my childhood, birthdays in ballrooms, vacations on private islands, and wonder if I'd thrown away comfort for a fantasy. But then I'd look over and see them, sitting cross-legged on the floor, sorting inventory, smiling like this broken world still held beauty, and I'd remember, this was the life I chose. And for once, it was mine. 3 years went by. Then 4. The business grew. Not into an empire, but into a name people trusted. We built a reputation for honesty, fairness, and authenticity, everything I never saw in the company I was born into. Then one day, an invitation arrived. A corporate gala, sponsored by a conglomerate we'd recently partnered with. Our brand had been featured in a national magazine, and they wanted us front and center. I almost didn't go, but something inside me said, it's time. The room was full of faces I recognized, former colleagues, board members, even the media. And at the far end of the room, standing exactly where I used to stand, were my parents. Older now, stiffer, surrounded by people but somehow alone. When they saw me, their expressions didn't show guilt. Not even regret. Just surprise. We exchanged brief words, polite, hollow. My mother said, "You've done well for yourself." My father added, "We always knew you had potential." But their eyes betrayed the truth. They weren't proud. They were uncomfortable, because I had succeeded without them. And there was no version of that story where they came out looking like the heroes. I didn't argue, didn't demand an apology. I simply smiled and walked away. That moment didn't feel like revenge. It felt like closure. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I had already won. Later that night, as we stood on the rooftop of our hotel, looking over the city we now belonged to, I realized something. I didn't lose a family. I uncovered the truth about what family really is. It's not who shares your blood. It's who stands beside you when the world turns its back. And sometimes, the greatest betrayal is the thing that sets you free. That completes your full 2,000-word, 4-part faceless betrayal plus infidelity story, designed for narration or dramatic voiceover. If you'd like me to format it for YouTube voiceover, add music tone cues, or create a script card version, just let me know.